You know, I'm really enjoying Wholesome Halloween 3 as a bit of a full circle moment. The first one was made during COVID lockdown to brighten a terrible time up a little, and so we opened this season with a movie filmed during that period that brightened my time up then. I think that's kind of groovy. Something that also happened during that first marathon was I released my film, The August Club, on the final day. Now that film couldn't tour at the time because, well, duh. But the following year, it started its festival run. And while it would have been cool to go around all the places it got in, it mostly just wasn't feasible. One festival, however, was but a train ride away. A lovely celebration of horror known as the Dead Northern Festival, where I was given the wonderful status of being one of the headliners. I mean, I assume, at least, from this festival shirt. I don't know. They never actually told me that I was a headliner, per se. But look! I'm in the big names category. It's got my logo and everything, so who's a disappointment now? And so I ventured there in the hopes of winning one of those lovely coffin-shaped trophies they give out, which I did not, even though I really wanted one because they look super cool, but it's fine. I'm not mad. If they wanted to give me one just for fun, because they just like me or something, that's fine, that'd be chill, whatever. But you know, they don't have to do that, because while I didn't take home an award, I did get to take home the discovery of several new horror films. One of which that I loved was the vampire horror comedy Red Snow. You see what's happening here? I finished that first season with the public debut of The August Club. Through that film I get to go to a festival and find another vampire horror comedy. Now I'm featuring that one in the same show in which I released The August Club. Full circle, man. Full circle. So, what's the crack with Red Snow? Well, shot on location in a snowy Lake Tahoe, Red Snow tells the story of a struggling novelist, Olivia, who specialises in both supernatural romance and creative rejection. Been there, mate. Trying desperately to make it big with novel after novel but to no avail, Olivia finds herself unemployed and living solely off what was left behind by her deceased mother, spending the Christmas holidays alone in her mother's cabin, despite her sister's requests that she come home. One dark night, a wild bat flies into her window and injures itself. With slight reluctance, Olivia nurses it back to health, only to find that, oh balls, that's not a bat, that's a naked man who can turn into a bat, also known as a vampire. This handsome fella's name is Luke, and although he doesn't look it at first, what with all the demon thing he's got going on up here, turns out, after a little bit of pig's blood, Luke is quite the sexy charmer. But what is sexy can also be dangerous. And that's kind of what makes it sexy sometimes. So now, with a vampire restoring his former strength in her garage, Olivia has to maybe be a little careful. Luke claims he's all above board, not a killer. Though he does concede he's partial to a bit of the old red now and then, he doesn't kill people to get it. He then adds that he has only crashed into her life because he's being hunted by an evil fascist cult out to kill all vampires. Olivia then ends up caught in a tangled web with the alleged hunter, the potentially dangerous bloodsucker, and maybe a few other strangers stalking through the night, all while living the fangirl fantasy of being able to talk and consult with a real-life vampiric being on the contents of her novels in a story that could have been ripped straight from her own pages. There's blood, there's danger, and perhaps even a little romance, as the human and her new weakened vampire friend build a strange and uncertain companionship. What I really love about this movie immediately is its two leads, especially Olivia, portrayed by Denise Cisneros, who is an instantly warm and likeable presence that really helps carry your investment from frame one. I love the chemistry she has with Luke, and the two holding conversation has a real tangible nervousness to it that quickly snowballs into a bouncy and jovial back and forth with some really tight and really funny dialogue. But what I like about Olivia especially is she's the kind of protagonist you normally do not get to see. Olivia is a dork, but not the fun, Hollywood-approved sort of dork in a Stranger Things kind of way, where the narrative tells us, these dudes are nerds because they like D&D, which we do know that everybody likes now, but it's the only shorthand way of codifying geek that we know of. No, Olivia isn't a cool dork. Olivia isn't the kind of dork who's going to rise to an occasion with a big rallying speech to fight an army of demons, or the kind of dork who's going to be the subject of a major sitcom where he likes lots of really quite mainstream things but gets labelled a nerd for liking those things anyway, and then gets to go out with super attractive people who see him for what he truly is. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. This isn't a Big Bang Theory dog or an It Chapter 1 dog or even a Revenge of the Nerds dog. This is a Twilight mom dog. She isn't a mother, and she actually doesn't express an interest in Twilight specifically, although one character does name drop Stephanie Meyer. But you understand what I mean when I say that. Olivia is a character who has a deep, deep, deep passion for a thing that society as a whole has genuinely written off as really lame and uncool and cringe. In any other movie, I think Olivia would be a one-note creation. She'd be a character who's an annoying sister, who's a little too obsessed with a boy band, or a character's mum who is embarrassingly too old to thirst over a young Robert Pattinson. Her character would be written from almost a place of bullying. She would exist to be made fun of. She'd be a joke about overly horny women too into romance novels. That's not the case with Olivia. Olivia is the shining star of this movie. She's what makes the whole thing so special, because the movie is already good just with its lush, snowy setting, fun plotting, and often laugh-out-loud dialogue, but Olivia gives it a beating heart. When watching the film, I felt like the director and writer, Sean Nichols Lynch, had consciously kind of pushed back against this rhetoric of distaste and feeling like it's okay to make fun of certain harmless interests. A concept that especially seems to come up suspiciously as a recurring thing when it comes to interests held by an audience of mostly women. And I just thought it was really cool to see a character who wouldn't normally get the protagonistic role and who was unashamedly interested and passionate about a subject many write off en masse that got to be this wholly fleshed out person and not just a one-note gag. And it made me wonder if this was an intentional thing. Had Sean kind of thought about the sort of negative brush that tarred all these women in tandem, especially around the release of Twilight when it was literally the cool thing to hate on this culture and the people who were a part of it. So I asked him. So hey Sean, welcome to the channel.
Thanks for having me.
It feels to me that you really tapped in to this kind of cultural zeitgeist with the whole, vampire girly sort of thing. And I thought it was so interesting. One of the things I really, really, really love about your film is we're seeing the kind of protagonist I think we normally don't see. Was that something you were kind of had in mind when you were exploring this character?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you touched on a couple of things there that actually I thought a lot about while developing the project, going through those mini drafts of the script. And one was that the film does not have sort of a mean-spirited look at Olivia. I think that was important from the beginning, that even though she has these interests that are frequently derided, especially like you said during the time of the Twilight boom, that the movie isn't really casting judgments necessarily. I think that the key for me to making it work is that you're not asked to. I mean, occasionally you sort of can laugh at the character, but you are invested in her, and it's not like it's not mocking her necessarily.
It's not coming from a stance of like bullying. It's very much like this character is fun, and like you laugh at her, but you're laughing at her as like a friend rather than as a target.
Yeah, and it's also important just narratively for us to be along with the ride. Like, we understand that vampires are exciting to her. How exciting would this fantasy be for her to find a vampire in her garage? Like, that hits so much harder if we're already, on board with the character and understand that she's in this sort of dark place alone at Christmas with, this very estranged relationship with her family. I think that was sort of key to it, and along with casting Denise in the role, who's just sort of innately likable. Is that but that's a very good point. Like that was sort of top of mind in developing the character.
Thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything you want to say? Like, is there any way people can follow you, keep up to date with your projects?
SeanNicholsLynch.com. I update whenever there's something new going on. I'm actually in post on sort of a found footage kind of project. It's a very strange movie, but I hope to take it to festivals when it's done. and I'll be posting updates about that on my site.
Awesome. Well, I am
Yeah.
already following you, but I would encourage anybody who is not to check Sean out. He's a great filmmaker, very talented man, and I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Sean, for being a part of this video. You can catch my full conversation with him where we talk filmmaking, writing, and more about Red Snow over on my Patreon, where whatever money I receive this month will go direct to Trans Lifeline. Once again though, if you do have to choose, please prioritise direct donations with the donate button on this video. They get a little bit more money that way. Anyway, let's talk some more about this fabulous film. Obviously I've gushed about Olivia a bit, and she really is the beating heart and soul of this movie that makes it all work. But I'd be remiss not to celebrate some of its other achievements. Luke is an obvious aspect where the film also knocks it out of the park. His performance by Nico Bellamy is genuinely effortlessly charming and funny, but never neglects that hint of something potentially troubling under the surface. It's a real great juggling act because you spend the early moments of the film going, I don't know if I can trust this guy, and then he'll give this little smile and you're like, oh, okay, Luke, what are you doing, man? Are you busy? The writing is really punchy and every character has a great tone of voice. Later, little bit spoilers, but we are introduced to other vampires and they integrate into this cast of characters, seamlessly adding new stakes just when we need some, and shaking up the dynamic in fun and interesting ways. The film is also a bit of a looker. I mentioned earlier it was low budget, and I'll be honest, I didn't know that, which is probably the biggest compliment you can give a low budget film. It may be perhaps because my first time watching it, I was giving it a viewing after having just seen The August Club for the 10 millionth time and thinking, oh wow, this Red Snow is way better. But it wasn't until my conversation with Sean I had even considered that it would be a low budget movie. I mean, now that he's spelled it out to me, I can totally see what he means. He's clearly made this film in a very economical way. Everything takes place in almost one location, action is kept mostly to climactic scenes, and a good chunk of the film is, when you boil it down to its core, almost just an awkward romance movie of two characters getting to know each other. It's kind of like a series of low stakes dates, only they're actually weirdly high stakes because one of the individuals on the date could potentially tear the other one's throat out at any second. And as much as I can now physically tell where the decisions were made to make sure this thing does come in at a low budget, it didn't feel low budget at all at the festival, where I've got to say, it absolutely slayed. Literally everyone I talked to there loved it. And the atmosphere coming out of the screening was really energetic, with people quoting their favourite lines and talking about the ending and stuff. And you know, none of it was just people being nice because Sean wasn't even there. And I think this primarily revolves around two really great creative decisions. One, the writing is so good that it's those low effort scenes you crave the most, because the characters of Olivia and Luke and their relationship is so interesting. When I think back at all my favourite parts of the movie, a lot of it is just them having conversations. Sean, cast and crew really pulled the energy out of the script. So much so you don't feel like the exposition or the parts where they're probably trying to save budget are in any way low points of the film. If anything, they're highlights. Secondly, that location and setting, man. Everyone involved in this film really got the beauty out of a snowy Lake Tahoe. The film opens with some really gorgeous stuff, and the deep colour contrast of blood red on snow white is always a great visual. Funny enough, speaking on how intelligently some of this film was crafted to get more bang for its buck, I was actually blown away when I was talking about the setting with Sean to learn this.
The name of the movie is Red Snow. You go in expecting snow. We had almost no snow on this film.
What?
Yes, and there's
oh my
shots,
god!
There's shots where
you could have fooled me.
Yeah, I mean, there are shots where we literally shoveled it into the shot. And you know, the thing about this was it was an unusually warm winter. You're going to hear a lot of that as the years go on.
Wow.
But unusually warm winter, you know, in Tahoe. And the one day where I knew we could not fake it, and I've already alluded to it earlier, was that full day where we shot the exterior fight and chase scene with Olivia and Brock. It's like, if we don't have snow on this day, we're screwed. Like, this is the one day where we can't, where it just wide shot after wide shot of these huge vistas of white. And for whatever reason, you know, it just dumped snow that day, like the day we needed it. Like, there could have not, and almost like too much snow. Like, you can actually see the snow falling in shots, which was not something that I had planned. It was just a happy accident.
What? That's genuine craftsmanship right there. Using the tools you have available, however obtuse and difficult, to make something that really communicates a vision. These guys wanted snow, didn't really have snow, didn't have the budget to fake snow, somehow made snow work anyway. You can say it's a real product of passion. It's a story Sean clearly cares a lot about, I could tell that long before I met him and wasn't surprised at all to see his passion for this project come through in our conversation. It's a great fun romp and an excellent character study, one that puts the spotlight on an often underexplored and too easily written off kind of individual in a really endearing and loving way. And also, as a final point, and I won't spoil it here, but I think it's got a banger ending. I hadn't read any reviews or anything before speaking to Sean, so I didn't know this, but apparently, within the circles of people who watch this movie, it's actually very divisive. I am shocked to hear that, because while it is a little left field and not necessarily what you'd predict, it's absolutely the perfect ending for these characters. So all I'm saying is you should totally watch the movie and make up your own mind. That way, you'll get to watch a fun film and support a talented creator in the genre space. And then, you could even double bill it with the August Club and support an untalented creator in the genre space too. After all, this month is about charity. I'm kidding, of course, except for about the charity stuff, because once again, as we wrap up for today, I will remind everyone that this month's ad revenue, Patreon payments, and donations will all be given to Trans Lifeline. So if you have the capacity to support it all, please be sure to make a donation and make this Halloween do a little extra good and be a little bit more wholesome for it. Obviously as well, you know the drill, like, comment and subscribe to my OnlyDans at the red button below, hit the bell so you don't miss anything, and there's a bunch of links and stuff in the description for my Patreon as well, and a whole host of other cool stuff I'm involved in this month that isn't related to Trans Lifeline charity endeavours, like a 10% discount code to the newest In Search of Darkness movie, which, yeah boy, is accredited advisor on, as well as the link to my Face of Horror page where you get a free vote daily to vote for me to be this year's Face of Horror. Please do that if I'm still in the running, that would be super cool. Anyway, that's enough from me today, and as always, I will see you again tomorrow.